I should add, if you're thinking, who is this idiot to be conducting such experiments? What relevant experience, training, expertise does he have in this field? Well, I was on World of Zwift news update this week because I rode up a pretend hill with a dog on my back. So suck on that. Last week I raced in a duathlon with this, my high-tech carbon fibre state-of-the-art bike, so fancy it doesn't even need bits of frame where you'd think they'd be important. And I raced on it with these mountain bike pedals. And I did quite well, third overall, first in my age group and first on the bike section. Now the reason I used these was not because there was an extreme off-road downhill bit. No, I wanted to ride in my running shoes because on my first duathlon, the week before, I discovered that if I change into my bike shoes, I spend as long mucking about with footwear as a 6-year-old on the first day of school. That first time, my transitions were two of the slowest measured that day. The more recent race, with these, I was one of the fastest, and twice as fast as anyone stopping to switch shoes, which included all the quick guys that I was hoping to stay close to. Now I thought that video would cause people to say, what the hell did you do? Putting those things onto that bike? No mode of transport has been that disrespected since Daisy jumped all over the seats in John's '69 Mustang. Does the man not own a rug or something? But actually, people said, what a great idea. On a short race like that, transitions mean a lot. So what you did makes sense. And a lot of people also said stuff like, there is no performance difference between flats and clipless. Clipless, grossly overrated. Flats are great. A good pair can be just as good as being clipped in. You're an amazing athlete. I hope your wife knows how lucky she is to have you. So you get the idea. And it got me thinking, I wonder what comparing these to these back to back would yield in terms of results. So here's what I did. 2 races on Zwift, 24 hours apart, same race, same course, same distance, but different shoesies on my tootsies. So this is Ride 1 Saturday. It's the ZHQ FutureWorks circuit race. 2 laps around the Champs-Elysees in Paris, about 16.5k, about 92 metres a climb. I picked this one because it's run all the time, so it's easy to get on the same race the following day. And it's a good distance, long enough that there are sections where I can just settle into maintaining a steady rhythm, but equally a few bits where I'm going to need to put down some power. One of the things that occurred to me on my duathlon using the flat pedals was that once I was up to speed, maintaining that speed nice and steady felt fine in the flat shoes. Will that transition across to Zwift? I will cover the specifics on the shoes and the pedals I'm using in a bit, but first, even before we set off here, as I'm doing my standard 2-minute warm-up, it felt weird not clipping in. I was going to say that it felt like I'm not putting on a seatbelt in a car, like something was missing, and there was a bit of that, but it was more that it just didn't feel as cool, and that was a bad thing. For me, when I'm using these and I'm ratcheting up the boa dials and I'm locking my feet onto the pedals with a clunk, it's a sort of mental signal that it's go time. It just feels to me like I'm ready for action. I don't know why. It just does. This, just getting on and pedaling, it felt like I was going to the shops for a loaf of bread. So psychologically, 1-0 to clipless. And then we were off, and typical start to a B category race, 500 watts, and I'm still nowhere near the front. And straight away, I knew that my feet did not feel as good as they normally do. Pedaling around 84, 85 revolutions per minute, which is not actually that high, I could feel my feet almost coming off the pedal at the top of the stroke. They weren't actually leaving the pedal, but they definitely did not feel attached. Now the pedals I'm using here are not nasty plastic junk. These are DMR V12s with some serious grip, nice wide platform. And the shoes that I'm using are Freerider 510s, decent mountain bike shoes designed to feel good and secure on a pedal like this. Also, if you're wondering why I did the test on the Kicker bike and not on the Kicker trainer with the Cervelo on it, it's because I knew that with this route, I'd be requiring some stand-up pedaling, and that thing just lets me put down more power more confidently. The TT bike just doesn't work quite as well. I can push harder on that, no question. So these combined should be pretty good. And to be fair, once I got used to my feet not feeling the way they would normally do, I was able to settle into generating a steady few hundred watts, which did keep me with the front of the pack, and the shoes felt fine for that. The first serious problem occurred on the hill that leads up to the Arc de Triomphe. That is where you loop around and then ride back down again. The slope is not significant going up there, about 3%, but it is a prime spot for the leaders to try and pull away. What I like to do is, as soon as I feel the pack moving past me, is stand up and churn out some watts. Around 500 at my weight is normally about enough to keep me with that lead group. But you'll see me here try and stand up, and after just literally a couple of seconds, I sit right back down again. Now maybe it would be easier with practice, but that just felt unstable. It felt really uncomfortable. My bike is on a rocker plate here, so moving around, perhaps that made it worse. Either way, I sit back down and just have to pedal as hard as I possibly can, which creates two problems. First of all, I can't get the wattage much above 400 sat down. And the bigger issue is that my quads are on fire. I'll explain why in a bit. Now, I get very, very lucky here because at the top of the climb, I've lost the lead pack. And so as we start our descent back down, they are gone. Now, I've been in this position on this course a few times before, and there is normally no way I am catching them. They're gone. But then the chasing group comes past, and I'm able to stay with them on this downhill part, and somehow we do actually manage to reel in the leaders. And again, this type of pedaling, the shoes are okay. It's nice and steady, a few hundred watts, no problem. By the time we start lap 2, I'm actually right back where I should be if I'm hoping to be in contention for this race. Unfortunately, second time up the hill, I know exactly what's going to happen again. The pack is going to move past me as it does. I can't stand up confidently and pedal with any confidence and aggression. I certainly can't generate enough watts to stay with them. And again, quads on fire. And the problem here with the quads, I think, is caused because the only way I can generate power to the pedals is by pushing down. Basically, extension of the leg, quadriceps dominant movement. Now, when I'm clipped in, I can also pull up on the pedal. I can even push it over the top of the movement and then drag it backwards at the bottom of the movement as well. Basically, power through the whole range of the pedal cycle. Now, whether that actually generates more power is debatable. Some of the studies seem to suggest it might not. Certainly not on an average over the duration of the ride. But what it does do, for me at least, is it allows me to momentarily rest my quads while still generating a reasonable degree of power. If I only focus on that coming up phase for just a matter of seconds, it is enough for me to then switch back to using my quads, pushing down, and they've effectively had a bit of a rest, a short time off. Enough of some of the lactic acid that's built up, the pain build up to dissipate, and I can then hit it hard again. It's no different to pausing for a couple of seconds in the middle of a set of squats rather than just repping out one after the other non-stop. I can't do that here. It is non-stop quad work, or I risk a very low wattage while I try and recover them. Sure enough, as we round Arc de Triomphe for the second time, lead group has gone. And I end up riding with this group, 4 or 5 of us here, all the way back round to the finish line again. And I'm adopting that nice, steady, rhythmic pedaling that is all I need on this section going downhill. And that's handy because that's all I can do anyway. I did actually try and push over the top with my foot before extending it down, but my foot started moving around on the pedal. I didn't like it. I stuck to just basically stomping on the pedals. And to wrap it up, the sprint finish is all a bit of a mess. I am too far off the guy leading the charge, so I try and stand up to catch him. Doesn't really help. 600 watts is not enough. I still don't feel comfortable stood up, so I sit back down again. And then as this guy comes past me, there's nothing I can do. My quads are absolutely dead. I've got no alternative that I can call upon. I can't stand up. I have to just do what I can. Sat down. Can't even get over 500 watts to finish with. The one good thing about flat shoes, it's very, very easy to get off the bike, not slip over, and basically get onto the floor as easily and quickly as possible. I did wonder, as I was lying down there, whether somebody more used to riding in flat pedals going fast, like a mountain biker or a BMX rider, maybe more confident, more able to spin at a high RPM, generate some serious power without being attached to the pedals. I am neither of those things though, so I just don't know. If you ride a BMX, A, stick it in the comments as to whether you feel happy flying along unattached to your bike, and B, 1987 wants its bike back. Seriously, who rides those things nowadays? And then race 2, Sunday. Basically, everything that felt weird and different felt good this time. I went into it, still a bit of an ache in my quads, but from the very start was focusing on trying to generate power through the full revolution of the pedal cycle. Again, not disagreeing with the studies, probably not generating more power doing that than the day before, but definitely using more muscle groups to generate the power, which gives my quads in particular an easier time, lets them get warmed up. Going up the hill first time, even sat down, I was able to generate well over 400 watts, and so the lead group never really got too far ahead. I didn't need to stand up at any point, but I did just to remind myself how comfortable I felt doing that. Instantly, it felt good. I felt very stable on top of the bike there, even as it's rocking around. And then as we rounded the top, I found myself in the middle of this stretched out group at the front. I realized that one of the biggest differences that I was experiencing this time round was confidence. We are all one group here, but very stretched out. The leaders are actually some way ahead of me, but at no point did I feel too worried. I was quite happy to just ride around this loop, catch the leaders on the downhill. My legs felt tired, but I felt like I had other ample options. If I needed to stand up and sprint to catch them, I could do. If I needed to pull up on the pedal stroke to rest my quads, I could do that. It just felt like I had choices at my disposal that I didn't have the day before. Sure enough, on the downhill section, I stayed within sight of the front group. There is a point at the bottom where the front riders do form a bit of an individual blob, and I'm a few bike lengths off of that, but I'm able to generate a little burst, peak over 600 watts, combined with a minus 3% gradient, and I'm back in that lead group again. Jumping to the second climb up the hill. This time I do need to stand up a couple of times, at least to stay in contention, and I'm quite comfortable doing so. Having said that, by the time we get to the top, I do find myself in a stretched out bunch that looks like it's going to end up being the second group. To an extent, there is an inevitability about me getting dropped from the lead group in a B category race. I've only recently gone up to racing in B category, and I rarely expect to come anywhere near the top, no matter what I have on my feet. So on the downhill, it becomes clear that this little group I'm with now, that's the group I'm racing with. And I'm quite comfortable with that. I'm comfortable staying with them. And actually, as I was riding along here, I was very aware of something that I'd been doing the entire race, but not really thinking about. On Saturday's race, I had tried to keep my pedal cadence very consistent because doing that felt good with the flat pedals, basically nice and steady the whole time. And that actually may be the most efficient way to cycle, I don't know. But what I was doing here is something that I've always done, always in the whole year I've been cycling at least, and that is vary the cadence. The gear change on the kicker bike is almost computer game smooth, so jumping up and down on the gears is very, very simple. You can do it on full load, you can do a couple of cogs at a time. There are no mechanical limitations that there might be on a real bike. As a result, I do like to jump around the gears a little bit because it allows me to move between maybe 100 and above RPM and then down as low as 75, 80. And again, much like using my legs in a slightly different way to rest my quads, alternating my cadence feels like I'm giving myself a bit of a breather from the style of exertion that has been causing me to get exerted. I do it on long runs. Every now and then I will change my running style in the middle of a run. Maybe I'll lengthen my stride or increase or decrease my stride rate. If the ground is soft, I might even move to a heel strike from a midfoot strike, all temporarily, so that when I switch back to running the way I should be running, it just feels fresh again. And it may well be that is purely just in my head, but it doesn't matter, because if my head feels fresh, I feel fresh. So as we come round here, just over a kilometre to go, I'm doing everything I've spoken about. I'm adjusting my RPM up and down. I'm using being locked onto the pedals to allow me to push over the top and pull up with my pedal stroke as well. Basically, I'm trying to spread the workload across as many muscle groups and riding styles as possible, as opposed to Saturday, where my only option was just to push up and down and hope. My hope here is that when it comes to the sprint, I will have something left to give. I should also add that because of the ability to change gear really quickly and easily, I feel much more able to keep myself right where I wanted to be within this group. I can place myself more accurately. Just over 300 meters to go. This guy in yellow breaks away. Not concerned, he's gone far too early. He's not beating me. I'm now watching the rest of the group to see what they do. 250 meters to go, and people are clearly chasing after yellow, so I go for it. I stand up and I just trust the wattage. I know I'm the only person here doing 800, 900 watts. I don't panic. I know I will catch all of them, guaranteed. And someone beats me. But I did get the yellow shirt. You can't have everything. And the figures are quite interesting. On paper, everything looks quite similar. I was faster in the Clipless shoes, but only by a few seconds. That small time difference alone, not really enough to declare one style better than the other. But there are some other differences. Average speed both days only 0.5 kilometers per hour difference, but maximum speed Saturday 57, 64 on Sunday. Cadence average 89 for both rides, but Sunday had higher peaks and lower troughs as I was able to move between those gear ratios without having to worry about adjusting my feet or then flying off at a high RPM. And the really interesting one, wattage. 324 watts average for both days, but actually done in quite different ways. Sunday, I spent much more time close to 200 watts. On Saturday, it really went that low for long. And I think that's because on the second ride, I was more comfortable with taking a breather, letting my legs recuperate and being confident I could then get back to where I needed to be. And when I was there, I was very confident about positioning myself within the pack properly and therefore benefit from the draft better. Saturday, it felt a little bit more like I had to just sort of stick to a steady cadence, keep it smooth and just hope that everything going on around me just suited that, which is an approach that just doesn't really allow for the fact that there are other people in the race that I'm up against. So if I spent more time lower down the wattage, how is the average the same? Because I was more easily able to put down short bursts of higher power when I needed to get back in the group or overcome a gradient, and most obviously at the sprint finish on the second race. Taking the last 250 meters of both races, you can see I am generating hundreds more watts and going over 10 kilometers per hour faster up to the line. Is that because I'm also pulling up and generating power through the whole revolution? Is it because my legs are better rested from alternating the riding style up until that point? Or is it the increased confidence when stood up? I don't know, maybe a bit of all of those. So in summary, in my highly unscientific assessment, because yes, I know no two races are the same and it's not very sensible therefore to compare them to each other, but I will always wear clipless shoes indoors. The only reason I can think of wearing flat shoes on a road bike is super fast transitions on a really short duathlon where the transition time is crucial and you can't be bothered to learn how to transition fast. If you think you're going to fall off, clipped in, or you just need some bread from the shops, none of which applies in here. You certainly can't fall off of an indoor bike. So if you currently do not use clipless shoes indoors, you should try some. If you do and you wondered about using flats, don't bother. Science over. Oh, and if you wondered why I used my Garmin Vector power meter pedals on the kicker bike and not my normal bog standard clipless pedals, it's because I wanted to see if the discrepancy that I was getting between these pedals, the Garmin Vector pedals, on my kicker trainer, as described in my last video, was specific to the kicker trainer, or if it also measured inaccurately against the kicker bike. According to the Vector 3 pedals, my race averaged 126 watts, or as Garmin called it, within expectations. These are rapidly looking like they might go the same way as John Wick's puppy. Okay, like and subscribe please, because when you do, I literally run off and make more videos. If you've got any questions, got any comments, stick them down below. I will see you guys on the next one.